Will USC have a bounce back year in 2025? We're going to see if that schedule gives them a chance to maybe have a much better year, and give you a very early projected record here in this video, looking at the USC Trojans for 2025. USC's schedule in 2024 was really not the problem for them. The schedule really wound up being a little easier than what we anticipated, I think, in the preseason, but it was still a tough schedule. The problem was just, all those close games. They lost so many close games. We'll see if they can turn things around, and we'll see if this schedule is going to give them a chance to get things turned around in 2025. Here is that full schedule, and here is the non-conference. So they'll play Missouri State, Georgia Southern, and Notre Dame. They do play Notre Dame on the road this year, but no other big opponent. You've got two easier games and then Notre Dame. So an easier non-conference schedule for sure, looking at this 2025 schedule. Let's look now at the home and away. So in the Big Ten, they've got 5 home games. You've got Michigan State, Michigan, Northwestern, Iowa, and UCLA. That's a pretty good draw. I mean, they got a shot in all those games, I would say. And then you look at the road schedule: Purdue, Illinois, of course, Notre Dame in the non-conference, then Nebraska and Oregon, also road games in the Big Ten. So yeah, this schedule, in my opinion, is easier. Let's look exactly at who they added, who they lost. So they remove Maryland, Northwestern, Penn State, Rutgers, Washington, and Wisconsin. They added Illinois, Iowa, Michigan State, Northwestern, Oregon, and Purdue. So I think you can trade off Penn State and Oregon. Those are two really good teams. And so, yeah, I mean, it's actually probably a little bit tougher when you look at their Big Ten schedule, because they add Illinois and Iowa. Those will be, tougher games, I think, than, let's say, Washington and Rutgers were last year. So, yeah, it's actually, I think, a little bit tougher in the Big Ten, but the non-conference obviously easier. That's why I would say overall the schedule is easier, but it's a similar, I would say it's a pretty similar schedule in the Big Ten. So let's go game by game. They'll play Missouri State on August 30th, first game of the season. Then it's Georgia State on September 6th. A couple of easier games there to start off. That's always good, especially if you're going to have some question marks and have some young guys needing to play early on. They got Purdue on the road September 13th. First road game, first Big Ten game. But I'll tell you what, if you want to play a conference game on the road, Purdue's the team you want to play. This was clearly the worst team in the Big Ten last year. I don't think they're going to be much better this year. So that's not a bad first game on the road if you have to play one of those. Michigan State is next on September 20th at home. And then they'll play Illinois on the road September 27th. That's going to be a tough game. Illinois should be pretty good this year. And again, that game being away from home. But still, you feel pretty good about at least getting to 4-1 in these first 5 games. Then they get a bye week. And very interesting here, they have a bye week and then only 2 games before another bye week. So their bye weeks are very close together, both in the month of October. That is very strange. Michigan is at home. Notre Dame is on the road. I think you want to try to split here if you're USC. Maybe beat Michigan at home. Maybe you don't beat Notre Dame on the road. Or maybe you some way find a way to beat Notre Dame on the road. Then you lose to Michigan. Either way, I think if you split those 2 games, and let's say they lose to Illinois on the road, then you're going into this final stretch potentially with just 2 losses, and you got to find a way to win out. And that is going to be tough because of that team on November 22nd. That's going to be the challenge, the big challenge, in my opinion, for USC. But before you even get there, you've got Nebraska on the road. That's going to be a tough one. Then you've got Northwestern at home, Iowa at home. Those, we'll see how good those 2 teams are. Northwestern is one that I would feel pretty good about if I'm a USC fan. Iowa, that might be more of a toss-up type game. You've got Oregon on the road November 22nd, and then UCLA to close things out November 29th. So again, if this team's going to make a big run, if they're going to make a run to the college football playoff, they're going to have to beat Illinois, or they're going to have to beat Michigan and Michigan. They have to go on the road, beat Illinois, beat Michigan. Maybe you don't beat Notre Dame, you don't beat Oregon. You can get to 10-2. But I'm looking at those 4 games being very tough. I think Nebraska could be tough. Iowa could be a tough game as well. I just, when you look at the opponents, like I said, it's pretty similar in the Big Ten, and it's an easier non-conference. But I don't like the timing of these games. I mean, you've got Oregon on the road after a tough game against Iowa. You've got Michigan and Notre Dame back-to-back. it's a tough draw in terms of where these games are on the schedule. So that's what I don't like if I'm a USC fan. What I do like is the non-conference, because this is a much easier non-conference schedule and not having an SEC type opponent on there. So where does this stack up in the Big Ten? They actually do have one of the easier schedules. I would say probably because they don't play Ohio State, they don't play Penn State. But if you look at their opponents' winning percentage from last season, those 2025 opponents, they went 37-44 in 2024. So a 46% win percentage. That is actually one of the easier schedules in the Big Ten. So their conference schedule is one of the easier schedules. But again, I just don't like where the games are. I think that makes it a little bit tougher. We'll see how it plays out. But USC, in my opinion, they do not have the third easiest schedule in the Big Ten. I do think this schedule is tougher for them in 2025. Before we get to the projected record, just want to let you know we do have a USC channel. So if you're a USC fan, go check it out. Go subscribe. Great call-in show over there. Videos posted as well. So again, USC fans, go subscribe to our USC channel. What will USC's projected record be in 2025? Well, let's first look back at some projections from the last 4 years. And this is with our projected record formula. This is not a prediction. So everything in this video, remember that. This is not a prediction. I don't do predictions until after Memorial Day, after spring football, all of that. I still think USC might be fairly active in the transfer portal in this spring window. We'll see. But yeah, I don't think we know for sure what this team is going to look like just yet. You look at 2021, projection was 8-4. They went 4-8, so they were in reverse of that. And then in 2022, projection was 8-4 again. They go 11-1, so they beat the projection that season. And then in 2023, projection was 10-2. They go 7-5. So projections were not very accurate, but last season they were right on the money. Projection was 6-6. They went 6-6. So I have tweaked the formula throughout the years. So maybe it was maybe those tweaks helped to get a more accurate projection in 2024, or maybe USC was just kind of what we expect. I would say most people did not predict USC to go 6-6. I didn't pick them to go 6-6. I had them doing better than that. So maybe this projection was onto something there. I don't know. We'll see what it looks like for 2025. Again, here is the schedule, and this is the scale that we use. So with this formula, it's all based off of our tier rankings, and USC is in tier number 3. They're in the same tier as Nebraska and Iowa, some of the teams that they'll play this year. And so if they play another tier 3 team, that's going to be in the white. That'll be a 50-50 game. If they play a tier 4 team, it'll go into the purple, 61-70. But if that game is on the road, then it drops to a 50-50 game. So that's kind of the way this works. You can also look at it in terms of point spreads. Not the way this formula is calculated, but it does kind of work out this way. If it's a 50-50 game, the spread's more than likely going to be 3, 4, 5 points, maybe 61-70. Talking about a touchdown spread, 6, 7, 8 points, kind of in that range, 71-80. Talking probably double digits point spread in those types of games, and then over 80. Those are pretty much guaranteed wins. And for USC, you've only got 2 of those games, Missouri State and Georgia Southern. Those are considered wins. We're just go ahead and count those as wins when we do the math at the end. So 2 wins for a USC, 2 easy games. And then you've got Purdue and Northwestern. Now, Purdue would have actually been in the green, but being on the road was just enough to bump it down into the blue. So that's kind of the way this works. Northwestern at home, again, you feel pretty good about those games. You feel like USC is going to be a double-digit favorite. Not guaranteed wins, because upsets do happen, of course, but you feel pretty good about 4 games. You feel like USC should be able to win those 4 games, which means like if they split the rest of them, they'd go 8-4. But that's not exactly how this works. But that's just something to think about there. So how about games where they're going to be I'd say about a touchdown favorite? We got Michigan State, we got UCLA. These are tier 4 teams, so USC is in a tier above them, plus they're playing at home. That's why you see these games in the purple. And then how about underdogs? They're going to be underdogs. I think you look at Illinois. I think Illinois, I've got them in tier number 2 because of the way they finished last year and some of their pieces coming back. That game on the road as well. So that's going to be a tough one. USC, I think, is going to be probably a 6 or 7 point underdog there. And then we've got games where they're going to be bigger underdogs. We're talking Notre Dame and Oregon. These will be very, very tough for USC. Teams that are, these are tier 1 teams, plus they're on the road. So those will be very tough matchups for USC. If I'm a USC fan and I'm thinking big and I'm thinking playoff, maybe you don't win those games, but then you beat everyone else, and that is going to be enough. If they go 10-2 with a schedule, that's going to be enough to get them into the college football playoff. So then you've got Michigan, Nebraska, and Iowa. Again, Nebraska and Iowa are tier 3 teams. They're in the same tier as USC, so those are 50-50 games. Michigan is tier 2, but because that game is at home, that's enough to make it a 50-50 game, and that's enough to say that USC can absolutely win that game. It's very close to being a toss-up, in my opinion. So those 3 games, they're probably going to be close, and USC just was not good at winning the close games last season. Can they change that this year? Can they win some of those close games? Because if they are able to win those close games and then they're able to pull off an upset, let's say against Illinois, 10-2 is on the table, but I think that's probably about the best case scenario for this USC team. But also on the table is a loss to Illinois, and a loss to Michigan, and a loss to Nebraska, and a loss to Iowa. Then you're sitting there at 6-6 again. You slip up and have a big upset somewhere else like Michigan State and UCLA, you're 5-7. So, I mean, it could go either way when you've got a lot of games that do figure to be pretty close. And this schedule will be a grind. It's tough. And, I don't like the way these games are set up, where they are. I don't like the bye weeks being so close together. Definitely some tricky things with the schedule. So what is the projection for USC? When we average all of this out, what do we get? Well, we get 7-5. So I think 7-5, a pretty fair projection. Let's say they lose to Notre Dame and they lose to Oregon. Then you've got Illinois, Michigan, Nebraska, and Iowa. If they split those games, then they can get to 8-4. But the odds would say that they're probably going to slip up in one other game, like Michigan State, UCLA, Northwestern, Purdue. When you got that many games where you're going to be a favorite but not a huge favorite, odds would say you're going to trip up and maybe lose one of these games. And maybe they do, maybe they don't. So for me, I think 7-5 is fair. I think probably closer to 8-4 than 6-6 in terms of just a projection. Not saying that's what I would predict. I might predict 4-8. I don't know. I haven't made predictions yet. But just, again, based off of our formula, I think 7-5 does come out pretty fair for USC, and it would be a little bit of a better season than what they had last year. So what are your thoughts on USC? What do you think the projection should be? Let me know down in the comments. And, of course, memberships are available if you'd like to help support the channel. If you want to get early access to videos like this and much, much more, check it out. Link is in the description below. Read about all the perks, see if it's something you'd be interested in. And again, if nothing else, just help support the channel. So if you'd like to do that, again, I would greatly appreciate it.